So in 1933, a man bought a totally bankrupt, just ruined newspaper in a blind auction,
Right, and he had absolutely no idea how to run it. I mean, he didn't even know what a comic strip was.
which is wild. Yet, that blind purchase would eventually lay the groundwork for a massive media empire, like one capable of taking down a United States president.
Yeah, exactly. But to understand how the Washington Post became this titan, we actually have to look away from the newsroom.
We do. We have to look at a terrified little girl who, frankly, didn't even know she was a millionaire.
It is such a remarkable paradox. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are examining the origins of Katharine Graham.
Yeah, and we're using excerpts from her Pulitzer Prize-winning autobiography, Personal History. The mission today is to look at how this bizarrely isolated, high-pressure upbringing, forged one of the most consequential leaders of the 20th century.
If you've ever felt overwhelmed by family expectations or felt like you just didn't fit in, you will deeply relate to how Katharine navigated her childhood.
Oh, completely. Because looking through these source materials, the contradictions in her early life are just staggering. I want to start with the parents, actually.
Good place to start.
Right, because to understand Catherine, you really have to understand the two massive, totally opposing forces that created her. Her father, Eugene Meyer, seems almost impossibly rigid.
Oh, he was. Highly methodical.
I mean, looking at his notes, who actually plans out their entire existence in exact 20-year chunks?
Well, he did. He literally called it his map of life.
Map of life. Okay.
Yeah. Eugene came from a really distinguished Jewish family with roots in Alsace-Lorraine. And, I mean, his drive was phenomenal.
He graduated from Yale at 19, right?
19, exactly. And by his early 30s, he's a multimillionaire on Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right about that rigidity.
Yeah, it's intense.
His 20-year plan was basically a way to exert total control over a completely unpredictable world.
Mm-hmm.
The first 20 years were strictly for education.
Okay, that tracks.
Then the years from 20 to 40 were to earn what he called a competence, which just meant immense, unshakable financial independence.
Right, a competence.
And then 40 to 60 would be dedicated entirely to public service. And at 60, he would just retire.
Okay, wait, let's unpack this map of life concept for a second, because it sounds so much like modern tech bro life hacking,
Yeah, totally.
But this is the early 1900s. It feels like he's trying to, I don't know, algorithmically solve the human experience.
That's a great way to put it.
But then this perfectly calibrated system collides with someone who absolutely could not be contained by a spreadsheet. I mean, Agnes Ernst?
Precisely. Agnes was the ultimate unpredictable variable here.
She really was.
She was raised in this very austere, puritanical Lutheran household. And her early life was pretty much defined by what she later described as an intense Oedipus complex with her father.
Which is quite a thing to admit.
Yeah, well, he was this luminous artistic figure to her, but he was also deeply, deeply irresponsible. I mean, he eventually ruined the family finances with unpaid bills and philandering.
Wow. So she essentially associates traditional family dynamics like relying on a man or domesticity with financial ruin and deep betrayal.
That is the exact psychological mechanism at play there. That betrayal fueled this fierce, almost aggressive independence in Agnes.
Right. She just completely rejected the standard path.
She became terrified of being cast into what she called the universal mold of woman. She viewed motherhood and marriage as this conspiracy to flatten her personality.
So she fled into the bohemian art world of Paris.
Exactly. She befriended the photographer Edward Steichen, the sculptor Constantin Brancusi.
The sources mention a run-in she had with Auguste Rodin that completely blew my mind.
Oh, the studio story.
Yes. He locked his studio door, turned off the phone, and just makes a pass at her.
And she just talks her way out of it.
Right. She manages to talk her way out by arguing that she loved him strictly for his art and his teachings, and he just accepts it.
It's incredible.
She clearly had this overwhelming magnetic presence. So how did Eugene even manage to court someone like that?
Well, it happened in 1908, actually, on Lincoln's birthday.
Okay.
Eugene was at a Japanese print exhibit in New York, and he spots Agnes across the room. She was wearing this gray tweed suit and a small squirrel cap adorned with an eagle feather.
An eagle feather, of course.
Eugene takes one look at her, turns to his friend, and declares on the spot, that's the girl I'm going to marry.
Wow. It's just the collision of two titans. You have Eugene's quiet, methodical financial genius crashing into Agnes's chaotic, sort of ego-driven artistic passion.
What's fascinating here is how those opposing forces really set the stage for their family culture.
How do you mean?
Well, When you combine that level of immense wealth with that level of sheer ego, greatness isn't just encouraged for their children. It literally becomes a baseline requirement for existence.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine waking up in a 40-room mansion, completely surrounded by priceless art, but being too terrified to ask your own mother a simple question.
Right.
Because that's the reality Catherine and her four siblings were navigating. And the wealth described in the text is just hard to fathom.
It's astronomical.
We're talking about a Mount Kisco estate in New York with 700 acres, an indoor pool, a bowling alley.
And the pipe organ.
Yes, the pipe organ. Eugene used to wake the kids up on Sunday mornings by blasting the hymn Nearer My God to Thee through the entire house.
Which is quite the alarm clock.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And their Washington, D.C. home, Crescent Place, was just filled with original Cezanne and Manet.
Yet inside these palatial spaces, there was this profound emotional void. Agnes lacked any conventional maternal warmth whatsoever.
Yeah, that really comes through in the autobiography.
She routinely took her breakfast in bed, and she essentially treated motherhood as an administrative duty.
Right, the kids were raised by a revolving door of governesses, and that practical nurse they called Powley.
Exactly. And the text talks about something called the Meyer myth.
This part is so wild to me.
Agnes actively propagated this public illusion that all the Meyer girls were brilliant, bilingual, eccentric overachievers.
But behind closed doors, she was constantly undermining Catherine's actual abilities. I mean, why would a mother build her daughters up to the public only to tear them down in private?
Because Agnes viewed her daughters not as children, really, but as competitors.
Wow.
The Meyer myth was necessary for Agnes's own social standing. She needed her children to look like magnificent accessories.
Right. They were an extension of her brand.
Exactly. But behind closed doors, she had to crush their confidence so that she remained the undisputed intellectual queen of the household.
That is just brutal. And navigating that psychological minefield was made even harder by the family's three absolute taboos.
Oh, the taboos.
Money, sex, and the fact that Eugene was Jewish. These things simply did not exist in conversation.
Never talked about.
Catherine literally had to ask her mother if they were millionaires because someone at school accused her of being one.
Yeah.
And when she finally asked Agnes how sex worked, Agnes just snapped, haven't you seen dogs in the street? End of discussion.
Oh, cool.
But the religious taboo stands out to me. If Eugene came from this proud, distinguished family, why hide his Jewish heritage from his own children? Catherine didn't even know she was Jewish until she heard an anti-Semitic remark at Vassar College.
Well, you have to view that through the lens of the era, unfortunately.
Right, the 1920s and 30s.
The pervasive anti-Semitism of the early 20th century meant that for the Meyers to fully assimilate into the elite WSP-dominated circles of Washington and New York, they felt they had to basically erase that part of their identity.
It's an intense isolation from reality.
It really was.
If her home was a museum where she was expected to be a masterpiece, Catherine realized the safest thing to do was to become a velvet rope, like present but entirely invisible.
That's a really good analogy.
She adopted the role of the goody two-shoes. She was desperate to please. She went off to college not even knowing how to wash a sweater because no one had ever taught her.
And that passive obedience was a crucial survival mechanism for her. You can see the contrast with her older siblings, Florence, Biz, and Bill.
Oh, they rebelled completely.
Wildly against the immense gravity of their parents. I mean, Biz once pawned her mother's necklace in a dusty Virginia crossroads just to see what it was like to hawk something.
That is hilarious, just hawking diamonds for the thrill of it.
But the older siblings burned themselves out fighting the adult world.
Yeah.
By staying quiet, Catherine wasn't constantly in the line of fire.
Right.
She learned to blend into the background, to watch how power operated, and to really observe people's motives.
Which is a brilliant survival strategy for a child. But, that exact same passivity was about to become her biggest liability.
How so?
Because Eugene was about to completely upend their lives and thrust them into the cutthroat world of the newspaper business. By 1933, Eugene is transitioning into that final public service phase of his life plan.
Right. He had served under 7 presidents in various massive economic roles, eventually heading the Federal Reserve Board.
Which is a massive job.
But with Franklin Roosevelt coming into office, Eugene resigned. He retired to his estate, fully expecting to live the contemplative life of a gentleman farmer.
And he lasts exactly 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
He comes walking down the stairs, runs his finger along the banister, complains about dust, and Agnes looks at him and just says, "Eugene, it's time you bought the post."
And the Washington Post was a total wreck at this time.
An absolute disaster.
It had been run into bankruptcy by its owner, Edward Ned McLean, who was this playboy implicated in the Teapot Dome scandal.
Right, a total mess.
The paper circulation was plummeting. It couldn't even pay its newsprint bills. It was slated for a public auction, literally on the steps of its own building.
And Eugene had actually tried to buy it for $5 million years earlier, but they rejected him. So this time, he knows if he shows his face, the price will skyrocket.
Of course.
He hides out in his mansion and sends his lawyer to bid anonymously, giving him a strict ceiling. And it works. He wins the paper for $825,000.
It's an absolute steal for a major paper.
And the craziest detail. Katharine is a teenager, and she doesn't even know her father just bought a major metropolitan newspaper.
She has no clue.
She finds out weeks later by eavesdropping on her mother on the porch.
And the thing is, Eugene thought he could simply apply his Wall Street logic to fix the paper.
Right, you figure business is business.
He believed if you invest heavily, balance the books, and run a business ethically, success naturally follows.
Of a naive optimism.
He completely misunderstood the chaotic, emotional, just bare-knuckle reality of the 1930s newspaper business.
And here's where the Wall Street logic totally breaks down, because Eugene immediately runs into Sissy Patterson.
Sissy Patterson. Wow.
She was a close family friend, but more importantly, she was the ruthless editor for the rival Hearst paper in Washington. How does she react to Eugene buying the Post?
Oh, she retaliates by stealing the Post's most valuable asset. Its comic strips.
The comics.
Things like Dick Tracy and Gasoline Alley. Eugene didn't even read comics, but his managers told him they were literally the only things keeping their circulation alive.
Right, the readers were only buying it for Dick Tracy.
Sissy used a legal loophole, arguing that because her syndicate contract was with the bankrupt iteration of the Post, the new legal entity Eugene formed basically had no right to them.
So a Wall Street titan finds himself in a brutal 2-year street fight over Dick Tracy.
Exactly.
He fights her all the way through the courts, and eventually he wins them back.
And Sissy did not take the loss well.
No, she didn't.
She sent Eugene an ornately wrapped florist's box.
Okay, flowers. Like a peace offering.
Not quite. Inside the orchids was a smaller package containing a chunk of raw meat.
Oh my God.
Yeah, along with a card referencing Shylock's pound of flesh.
Yeah.
She really wanted to drive the knife in.
That is deeply unsettling. But, this chaotic baptism by fire forces Eugene to figure out what kind of publisher he actually wants to be.
Exactly. He realizes he isn't just balancing a ledger, he is shaping a civic institution.
Right.
To impose order on this chaos, Eugene drafted 7 principles for the Post. He insisted that the paper's first mission was to tell the absolute truth.
That's a high bar.
That it was a public trust, and that it would not be the ally of any special interest. And despite his own conservative political background, he refused to let the paper operate as a Republican mouthpiece.
Which is super impressive for the time.
He was laying the exact ethical and journalistic foundation that Katharine would one day inherit.
Right. And as Eugene is breathing life into this bankrupt paper, Katharine is finally leaving the stifling bubble of her childhood.
She's growing up.
Yeah, she goes to Vassar and then transfers to the University of Chicago. This seems to be the exact moment she starts finding her own voice.
The University of Chicago was an intellectual pressure cooker at the time. She enrolled in a great books course taught jointly by the university president, Robert Hutchins, and the philosopher Mortimer Adler.
Oh, wow, that's heavy hitting.
They used a relentless Socratic method. They would systematically tear down students' arguments to just force them to think critically.
So for someone like Katharine, who had spent her entire life trying to be invisible and never speaking up, this must have been a psychological earthquake.
It absolutely was. She had to learn to stand her ground and defend her ideas.
And those ideas started diverging wildly from her parents. We see Katharine developing very pro-labor, New Deal political views.
Right.
Which is fascinating when you impartially look at the historical context here. Her mother, Agnes, was actively running radio campaigns for the Republican presidential candidate, Alf Landon.
The contrast is huge.
The generational divide is so stark that Katharine's college friends literally gifted her a hammer and sickle tied with a red bow as a joke, and she had to sneak it into her house because Alf Landon himself was literally sitting in the family library.
She was finally engaging with the friction of the real world, though.
Yeah, exactly.
She took an unpaid summer job at the Mount Vernon Argus, which ironically prompted a protest from the newspaper guild because she was working for free.
Oh, the irony.
But she started observing labor relations firsthand.
And there's this incredible moment where she goes to the site of the Republic Steel plant strike in Chicago with a reporter friend.
I love this story.
They actually talk their way inside the plant by dropping the Washington Post's name. She thought she was going to be completely disowned by her dad for doing it.
But she wasn't.
No. The Post's managing editor wrote her back saying it was a fantastic experience. She is finally showing these tiny sparks of audacity.
And during this period of awakening, a really profound bond formed between Katharine and her father.
Yeah.
They began exchanging highly detailed analytical letters about the Post, discussing its editorials and its strategic future.
He's treating her like a peer.
Eugene was quietly, methodically grooming her. He explicitly wrote to her, saying she needed to come work on the paper to help take it to the top.
But looking at her responses in the source text, she pushes back hard. I mean, Agnes is out in the world demanding the spotlight, giving speeches to thousands, yet Eugene is offering Katharine the keys to the kingdom, and she hesitates.
She was terrified.
She tells him she doubts her ability to carry a load like the Post. She literally writes that he needs an automaton, not her. Why was she so terrified to accept his invitation?
She later described it as the Meyer tentacles.
The Meyer tentacles.
Yeah. Growing up in that environment meant you were instilled with a relentless compulsion to be terrific at whatever you did, but simultaneously cursed with a deep-seated fear that you were never quite doing it right.
That is a terrible combination.
The idea of failing on a stage as massive as the Washington Post paralyzed her. The echoes of Agnes undermining her were still incredibly loud.
But Eugene doesn't give up on her.
No, he doesn't. Eugene's quiet, steady belief in her intellect was the single most sustaining force in her early life.
That's beautiful, really.
He didn't demand that she'd be perfect immediately. He just wanted to give her the arena to learn. He saw the journalist, the thinker, and the leader in her long before she ever recognized it in herself.
It really brings this whole journey into focus, you know? We've traced how an incredibly isolated childhood, governed by bizarre taboos and emotionally distant titans, collided with a blind auction for a ruined newspaper.
Right.
And out of that collision, the groundwork for an American icon was laid.
It proves that the making of a leader is almost never a straight line of encouragement and traditional success. Katharine's ability to listen, to synthesize complex information, and to read a room, the very things that made her a legendary publisher, were born directly out of her need to survive her mother's ego.
Yeah.
Her fear of not knowing enough is precisely what drove her to constantly ask the right questions.
So what does this all mean for us? It leaves me with a lingering thought for you to ponder.
Go for it.
If Katharine Graham had been given a quote-unquote normal, loving, highly supportive childhood, would she have developed the quiet, steel-trap resilience required to survive the brutal, male-dominated newspaper business of the 20th century?
That's a big question.
Or was it precisely the bizarre neglect, the emotional Spartanism, and the intense pressure of her youth that forged the exact type of person capable of leading the Washington Post through historical crises like the Pentagon Papers and Watergate? Maybe being born into a museum without a rule book is the only way you truly figure out how to forge your own masterpiece. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.